everybody, this is Michelle with Creative Operation and Country Craft Creations. Good morning. I am here today sharing my project that I'm making, this heart-shaped explosion box using Country Craft Creations exclusive collection love letters. I've used this collection before, and I decided to order it again because I thought that the paper was perfect for this project. A lot of times I make projects and then, have to kind of wait for the perfect paper, to do it. This was the perfect paper for this project. I just absolutely love how this came out. So I did a walkthrough. I'll link that video below, but we're going to make this explosion box, which is really fun because it's a decor piece. It has album opportunities on the inside. You could use it as a gift box if you wanted to. It's just a really fun project to do, and it's heart-shaped. So, what's not to love about that, right? So one of my goals with the current design team packages that I have right now, which is Ooh La La Patisserie and then love letters, is that I wanted to I didn't order extra embellishments or anything like that. I want to go through and use up some stuff that I had from leftover design team packages. So I did do that. So some of the flowers are from previous design team packages, and the charms are, these little flat back pearls are, seam binding I have, I buy them in the actual spools, so I have a whole ton of that. I used ivory on this one, but it was just a way that I can kind of try to use up some of my stash also. I used craft cardstock, that is artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations, so it works out really well. So when you open this up, and it's actually fairly big, the lid itself is 7.5 wide by 7 tall, and the box actually measures 4 inches tall, so it's a fairly good size box. And then so when you take off the lid, it explodes out, and I just kind of did the lid simply here, but you could put a photo in here if you wanted to. You can do all kinds of things in the lid, but I'll just kind of show you what that looks like, and then we'll put that off to the side, and then this is the box. So like I said, it does explode out, but it only partially explodes out. I did leave this part up. During the tutorial, I'll probably call it a wall, just because it's kind of a background or a stage, maybe, if you will. And it has this fun little pop-up element here that I used one of the cut-aparts that I cut down and put down on there. So it has this nice little presentation. This album comes out. I'll show you how to do the mats for everything, and then I use some more flowers, some more pearls, and another one of the charms. And then this part does explode out. I left these two open. You could put pictures there if you wanted to. And then on the bottom here, we have 2 accordion style photo opportunities. So you could put photos in there. And then these just tie simply with some seam binding. So that is what we're going to be working with today. And I'll show you how to put this all together. I'm also going to show you, I'll show you this album real quick. So this is just a really simple stacked page album. I did use one of the hearts from the paper collection. I just fussy cut that out and I raised it on some foam dots. Added one of the flowers from a previous design team package, and then this little bitty charm. Put that on there. I thought that was really pretty. The flat back pearls came from 28 Lilac Lane, and they were in a kit that I got with the Forever Friends collection that I did some tutorials on, and there was a whole embellishment kit with like buttons and sequins and all kinds of stuff, and they had the flat back pearls, so that's where those came from. And then this just uses the seam binding again as a closure, and then the album is, like I said, it's just a simple stacked album, and then I used some pattern paper on one side and then left this side open for photographs. So really easy. You can make this as big or as small as you wanted to, and then it just ties closed here. So we're going to do this today, and then real quick, I want to show you, I'll show you my prototype, and then I'll show you a quick second project that I made, which is for St. Patrick's Day, using the lids from this project. So my prototype project here, again, same thing, just different papers, and these all came from my stash, but just another thing that I did. So I won't go through this particular one, but this was my prototype. And then again, I have that little pop-up element. I love how that turned out. I really do. So a lot of this came from my stash. And then what we're going to do is I'll show you this real quick, and at the end of the video I will talk to you about that. So I made this Shamrock Decor piece using the lids from this project, and it turned out absolutely gorgeous. And this paper here is Ireland Forever. This is exclusive again to Country Craft Creations, and I had just a few sheets left over from what I had previously, and truth be told, I just ordered a bunch more. So I want to use it for St. Patrick's Day again because it's just gorgeous. And then there's an extension pack that has come out that matches this paper through Country Craft Creations, so I'll be working with that as well. But I just had to have it, so I purchased that separately, but I will be making some projects. So anyways, we'll talk about that in a minute, but let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial now. We will be needing to do some fancy things to make the heart shapes. So what I'm going to do is, after this gets filmed, I'm going to take some pictures of these. I'm going to add them to a document in Google Docs, and then you'll be able to access it. So I'll have links and everything for that. But for the box bottom, so don't panic if you don't see this completely. I'll talk you through it. You can download this so you can have it in your notes, and then you won't have any problems creating this. So for the box bottom, we're going to start with the box bottom, and then we'll make the lid later. You're going to need a piece of cardstock that's 6.5 tall by 7 wide, okay? And then these marks here, as you can see, let me get a pencil pointer because that might be a little easier. From the corners here, what you'll do is you'll measure down, and I'll go through this and I'll show you how to do this. You'll measure down 1/4 inch, make a tick mark. From the bottom here, you'll measure up at 2 3/4, make a tick mark. On the bottom, at 3.5 inches, which is the mid section, you'll make a tick mark. You'll do the side over here exactly as you do the side over here. You'll do this corner exactly the same as you do over here. So on the top here, you'll measure 1 1/4 inches, make a tick, 1 1/4 inches, make a tick. And then 1 1/4 inches, make a tick, 1 1/4 inches, make a tick. And then the midpoint again at 3.5. And then we're going to measure down 3/4 inch. I'm going to go through all of this. Please don't, don't be intimidated. This is really easy. But that's how I came up with this heart mark. Or the heart shape. Then I just connected the dots and cut on those red lines, and that's how I got that shape. So we're going to go through this again. Again, there's going to be instructions, so don't worry. This will be in a document that you can download. So let's go through, and let me show you the absolute easiest way to do this. This is super simple. It looks complicated. And then for my pattern paper, parts of this I will go ahead and cover with you because they need a little bit more explanation. And I'm going to be using Homer's Diner. I had some extra papers, and we're going to make a heart-shaped box using Homer's Diner because it's going to be my I Love Rock and Roll heart-shaped explosion box. So we're going to do that as well. So the box bottom again, you're going to need the cardstock is 7 by 6.5. I'm using black artisan cardstock, and you will need to make 2 of these. And the reason why we're going to make 2 of these is because once we add all of our wall pieces and our side pieces, we're going to use a second piece to actually cover those tabs up and make a very nice, smooth presentation on the back. Okay, so you will need 2 pieces that are 7 by 6.5. I'm going to put that off to the side. So I do have these cut out already, and let's discuss how to do this. So we're going to cut them both the same, and I hope you can see this. I know that it's black and it's kind of hard to see, but that's why we're going to talk about it. On the fronts of these, I'm going to put an X, okay? And that is because I want to be able to match these up. Since we're doing some measurements and we're, cutting the cardstock, sometimes if your cuts are just a little bit off, even like a millimeter off, it's going to make a difference when you put things together. So I want to make sure that we have everything in the same orientation. So what I mean by that is that the fronts of the cardstock will actually match up, because I want it to be absolutely perfect. Sometimes, like if you cut this and you have this side up, but then you turn it over, it may not match when you make your duplicate, okay? So I want to make sure that everything is real successful. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil, and on your squares, you're going to make an X right in the middle so you know which side kind of matches, okay? And then we're going to put it in our scoreboard. Now, we're not going to score. What we're going to do is we're going to make tick marks. So if you go back to this paper, I do have, and make sure this is in camera, so I do have some notes here. So on the top of the square of the cardstock, you're going to make tick marks at 1 1/4, and you're just going to use your scoreboard measurements and make that tick mark at 1 1/4. And then you're going to go to, ooh, and I wrote that down wrong. It's 2 1/2, so let's fix that real quick. Okay. So 2 1/2. So you'll make a tick mark. You'll make a tick mark at 3 1/2 because that's the center point, and we need that in a minute. Then you're going to make a tick mark at 4 1/2 and at 5 3/4. Okay, so that's for the top of your heart. And then we're going to go to the sides of our square. Okay, so we're going to make tick marks 1 1/4 inches from the top and then 2 3/4 inches from the bottom. So if you go to the side here, and I know we're measuring backwards, but if you go 1 1/4, so it's 6 1/2, you go to 5 1/2 and then 1/4. Okay, so that will be 1 inch plus 1/4, make a tick mark, and then you go 2 3/4 here and make a tick mark. So essentially on the left side, you're going to make a tick mark at 2 3/4 and 5 1/4. Okay, and that's going to give you the 1 1/4 here and 2 3/4 here. Okay, and then we're going to go from the right side, and you'll make a tick mark at 1 1/4 and at 3 3/4. Okay, so 1 1/4 down, 2 3/4 here. Okay, and then we'll go to the bottom of our heart, and you're just simply going to make a tick mark at 3 1/2, okay, to find that center point. Okay, then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your ruler, and from this center point here, we're going to measure down 3/4 of an inch. So just grab your ruler here, and you're going to find your center mark, which will be, the 0 will be here, 3 1/2 top to bottom, and you're going to make a little mark here, and that's going to be the divot for your heart. Okay, and then you're just going to connect those lines. As you can see, I just connected the lines to make my heart shape. Okay, and then once you get that done, we're going to take our second piece of paper, and this is how I did it, and you can do this all separately if you want, but I am trying really hard to make sure that this is completely as, accurate as possible for both of these pieces. And then I'm just going to take my scissors, and I'm just going to cut right on that pencil mark. Okay, and I used clips to help keep everything in place. Okay, then as you cut this side off, you can add another clip too to keep it extra secure. Okay, and I'm just cutting on my pencil lines. All right, want to make sure these two pieces are exactly the same. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut down that point, being very careful not to go past. Now you could also use a ruler and a straight edge knife, like an X-Acto knife, if you want to do this. That's okay. Okay, so we have our heart-shaped pieces. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab my eraser here and get rid of those. And I'm just going to erase, don't erase your X's. You want your X's in the same spot, but I'm just going to erase down the sides just to make sure I don't have any pencil lines, okay? And that is how you make that box bottom. Now we're going to use the same process to make the lid, but it will be a different size, okay? And we'll get to that in just a little bit. We'll go through this process again, okay? But that's how you're going to get your heart-shaped piece, okay? So then once you're done with that, let's get rid of the scoreboard for just a second. And we're going to, I'm going to put this over here for a sec. We're going to grab a piece of scratch paper, because now what we're going to do is we're going to use this to create a pattern for our mat, for our pattern paper. Okay, so for our pattern paper. So I'm going to take one of these, it doesn't matter which one, and I'm going to just line this up on my paper, and I'm going to trace around. This is just a scratch piece of cardstock, because we're going to use this as a pattern. So I'm going to trace this around. This is how I got the shape for the mat, so you don't have to do any more real measuring. Okay, so once you trace your heart shape, and again, put an X just so you know which is the top side. And then we're going to take our ruler and we're going to line up on the edges at 1/8 of an inch. And we're just going to go around and draw a line, okay? Now I do have one already prepared just to show you what it'll look like. You're going to do that all the way around. So again, what I did was I traced my heart-shaped pattern, okay, so the cardstock, and then I went on the inside and I went with my ruler and drew my 1/8 inch lines. And I did that in red so you could see. And that's going to give you a perfect matte pattern for your pattern paper. Okay? And then once you cut that out, then what you're going to end up with is, and let me find it here, the pattern for your mat for your box bottom. Okay? Now, this needs to match your heart, okay? And you can see this is one that I did for my other heart, and it doesn't quite match up because it was meant for this box here. So we got to make one for this box, okay? You can also, the other thing you can do, and this is what I did, was I cut out patterns so that if I want to make this again, you know, I don't have to go through this whole process, okay? So once you do cut your cardstock and stuff, if you ever think you're going to want to make this again, draw this out again and keep it as patterns, okay? And make another base pattern, and then you have a stack of patterns that you can use in the future, and you don't have to go through all this again, okay? So I have a pattern for the cardstock for my box bottom. I have a pattern for my mat. I have a pattern for the cardstock for my lid, and then I have a lid pattern paper, okay? But I wanted to show you this process on how to get these. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, I'm going to draw all these lines. I'm going to make the pattern for this specific one that I did, because remember, as we cut our paper, you know, we could be off, like I said, just a millimeter. So I want to make sure I'm not going to use the patterns I used before, because they're going to be a little teensy bit off. And no, you know, nobody's going to notice that with the project, but it will, you know, if you try to mix and match, that's not going to work. I hope that makes sense. I'm probably confusing the heck out of everybody. If you have any questions, let me know, but I'm trying to explain this. So see how I'm going around and just going on the inside of those lines, and I'm making that 1/8 inch mark. But I don't want to confuse you. And this project is actually fairly simple. And if the other thing you could do is, if you're really good at designing, and I can't see my line, I'm having a hard time seeing my line. If you're really good at designing, you could go on Cricut or Silhouette and, you know, try and do this as well, so you can cut this out. I am not super good at doing that, so I might need to enlist some help. So please, you know, I kind of like using my rulers, you know, and my tools, my compasses, and all that stuff. You guys know that. Okay, so this is going to be my pattern paper matte pattern. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut this out on those inside lines that we just drew. And this is going to give us an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And I did that just so that it was like super simple to figure out. I usually do stuff with 1/16 of an inch borders, you know, so we cut everything at an 1/8 inch shorter. But on this one, I really thought that doing an 1/8 of an inch would be a lot easier to figure out. So that's why we're doing that. Okay, so I'm cutting the inside lines right on those pencil lines. And again, this is my pattern. Once you make this, then you can use this to cut your pattern paper. Okay, like so. So now we have our mat. Get rid of this, and that should line up perfectly with our project. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so that's how you get the mat pattern. And then what I'm going to do is just to show you how this will work, we'll go ahead and cut this out. So then you just lay this down, and we're going to match our edges here, and we're going to trace around. And I want this to be the inside of my box, so the inside bottom part of my box. I'm just going to trace that around with my pencil. Okay, and I've got my X up. Okay, this is going to be the inside of my box. It's going to lay right there. Make sure that I got that right. And I'm going to cut on that pencil line, or just on the other side of it. Then you don't have to erase, right? And then if you want to ink, you can. And I think I will on this one. Just a little bit. Okay. Just cutting this out. I hope this makes sense. Don't be intimidated. This is a great project. And of course, once you get the hang of it, like I did the first one and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I did a little tweaking just to make it like super simple, or as simple as I could make it. And then, you know, of course, made another one. And then got the idea to make my shamrock. And I mean, I could whip it out real fast. And then once you, like I said, have patterns, then you don't have to go through all the measurements again. So that made it a lot easier. So there is my pattern paper. And this should lay down just perfectly for the inside of my box. And you can double check it if you think you need to trim anything, but I think we're going to be good. So we're just going to go with this. I'm going to ink this real quick, and then we'll lay this down. So this is the inside of my box, and you can see my X is here. Okay, this is the inside of my box. When you trace your pattern paper, now I'm going to show you. So on the bottom of the box, I did put some a mat of cardstock. We're going to use this other piece is going to cover the box. Okay, so the inside of the box, the X is facing the other direction, so we want to make sure our X's are in the proper orientation. So this is going to cover all of the little tabs that we're going to end up having. Okay, and then I'll show you that in a minute. But then this pattern paper, when you trace it, you want to make sure that you turn it over, and then that will match your box. Okay, that makes sense. We're going to go through this. We will go through this. Okay, so I have my, did I ink everything? There. I'm a light inker, and sometimes, there we go. Okay, so then you just grab your glue, and you do want to go ahead and paper the bottom of your box, and because with the tabs are going to go on the outside, and then we're going to cover that with that other piece of cardstock later. All right, so X's up, inside bottom of the box. We've got our pattern paper here. We're going to lay that down and mat this. I'm going to try and match my corners really well. Okay, and what did I do? There it is, found it. Okay, all right, so there is the inside bottom of our box. Okay, so we're going to keep this off to the side for a second, and then what we're going to do next is we're going to grab the sides. So for our box sides, we've got this, and we've got this. Okay, so we're going to do the wall part first, and then we're going to kind of set it off to the side for just a second. So this is the back part that stands up. You will need one piece that's 4.5 by 8.5, and then you'll need a pop-up mechanism, excuse me, that's 6 by 1. Okay, so I've got that. And then what we're going to do is I've already cut my pattern papers just so I can show you how to put this on. The pattern paper for the wall will be solid. Okay, so how we usually do our panels, you know, we have a border around the wall. As you can see, is actually, we're going to cover it with the two pieces right here. Okay, and we're going to put this on last because this size will depend on the pattern paper you select, you know, for this particular thing. So it cannot be more than 4 inches tall, and it is about, this one is at like 5 inches wide. Yeah, 5 inches wide. So that's, it could be a little bit wider. You could probably go as much as 6 if you wanted to, but this part here will depend on which cut apart you choose to use. Okay, so we're not going to do that because that will kind of depend on what you want. So, but for that wall, for covering the wall, you will need 2 pieces of pattern paper that are 4 wide by 3 3/4 tall. And what you're going to do, and I'll show you the scoring, but we're going to score one of them one way, and then we're going to turn it around and we're going to score another one another way. Okay, so you will need these pieces. So again, you'll need cardstock that's 4.5 by 8.5, and a pop-up mechanism that's 6 by 1. And then you will need 2 pieces of pattern paper that you're going to choose to be the inside of your box. That is 4 wide, 3 3/4 tall, and you'll need 2 of those. Okay, so let's put those off to the side for a sec, and then let's grab our scoreboard and let's score the cardstock pieces and get that started. Okay, so we're going to put this in our scoreboard, and if I can find my bone folder, and then we're going to score. Okay, so 8.5 at the top. We're going to score at 1 3/4, at 3, at 4 1/4, 5.5, 6 3/4. Okay, so again, 1 3/4, 3, 4 1/4, 5.5, 6 3/4, and then you're going to turn it, and I'm going to score this at 4. And the reason that I'm doing it this way instead of turning it and scoring it at half is I'm trying to make sure that my box sides are even. And if I score at 4, then I know that all of my box sides are 4 inches tall. And then I won't have my lid be wonky at all if there's any kind of, you know, alteration in how I cut it or whatever. And then this part here, the 1/2 inch tab, from 4 to 4.5, that's going to be where we're going to attach it to the box. So it doesn't really matter if that's a millimeter off, it's okay. But I want to make sure that my box sizes are the same. Okay, so that's why I'm doing it that way. And then you're going to take your 6-inch mechanism, and I'm going to turn it the correct way, and you're going to put the 6-inch at the top. You're going to score it 1, 2, 4, and 5, and that's all you're going to do with that. Okay, and then let's talk about the pattern paper. All right, so for the wall here, you're going to notice, okay, so this is the top of our heart-shaped box. Now, the reason I did this, not only to give this, but also to give some support for this box, because I didn't want it to kind of fall in on itself. These pieces here are the same, and then these pieces are a little bit wider. So we're going to have to score them, score the pattern paper for them a little bit differently. So one piece will go one direction, one piece will go another. So for the wall, okay, so for the first piece, let's go with the first piece. We're going to score at 1 5/8, and you're going to do this really lightly, okay? And then at 2 7/8. All right. And then for the second piece, and I'm going to just turn this around to show you, we're going to score at 1 1/8 and at 2 3/8. Okay. What that's going to do is it's going to give us the wider part here and the wider part here, so that when we put it on our wall piece, and you can see that these are wider than these four, that they'll match up. Okay. And they should, the score lines should line up exactly onto the score lines of your paper, okay, within 1/8 inch border all the way around. So when we glue these down, that should work out just fine, okay? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to prepare our pieces. I'm going to put this here for a sec. And let's fold and burnish first. And I'm going to just kind of do this lightly, because these corners aren't, you know, super square. We're going to kind of go around a heart shape. So I want it to kind of, you know, we don't need to have it super burnished. Okay. And then I'm going to miter all of these corners. Okay. So I'm going to just do that. And then the easiest way to do these pieces here is just to fold it and then go from the score line out and cut those little miters out and watch them fly all over your craft desk, because that's what they do. Okay. All right. Do that. And then one more on its own. And then you have your piece here. Okay. So then we'll get rid of these pieces. And this part here is actually the midsection is going to be the inside of your heart. And then that's how it's going to go around. Okay. So you can kind of see how that's going to work. Now the mechanism here, what you're going to do is you're going to fold like an accordion on either end, okay? And again, you don't want to burnish this too much, because you want to have kind of that springy thing. And you're going to glue this down. Right now, we're going to go down at the halfway mark here. Okay, so when you do this, you'll measure down roughly 1.5 inches. So that'll be right in the middle of this piece. And we're going to glue that piece down. So take your wall piece, kind of fold it in half. I'm going to use my scissors to hold that down. And then take your mechanism and put glue on. So the mechanism's like this. Put glue on one piece right now. Fold that down. And then we're going to measure down 1.5 inches. So it's roughly in the middle, and it's not going to show. So if it's off a little bit, it's okay. And then we're just going to glue that down. And you want to make sure that you kind of match that score line to score line, okay? All right. So it should look like that. Okay. And then you're just going to simply take this piece here and do the same thing on the other side. Okay. So we're just going to, I'm going to use my scissors again to hold this down. We're going to put glue on this piece here. And we're going to do that. Okay. So I'm just matching it up. I eyeballed it with the other piece that I just put down. Okay, and it should be good to go. Okay, and again, that's not going to show too much. Okay, so this is how this is going to be. Okay, that's your mechanism for making that pop up. Now you don't have to do this if you don't want to. This is a total optional thing, but when we put this on the back of our heart, that's how we're going to do it. So then you're going to take your pattern paper and we're going to just slightly score on those lines. Okay, and then we're going to ink the edges, and I'm not going to put pattern paper on all of the pieces here on camera, so some of these I will go ahead and finish, and then I'll come back and I'll do a walkthrough of my I Love Rock and Roll heart, but this will go ahead and glue right there. So I just inked my edges, and then I'm going to put my glue, and then make sure if the pattern paper has a direction that you put the correct one in the correct spot. Okay. And then line up your scores. They should line up exactly with your cardstock, and then just glue that down. Okay. Okay, and you should have a piece that looks like that. Okay, so we'll do the other side. This is what I'm calling the wall, and it's just fun. And I think it makes a nice interactive piece that you don't really expect from an explosion box either, which is kind of nice. You guys know me, I love me some explosion boxes, that's for sure. All right, so let's lay that down, matching our score lines. Okay. And our jukeboxes are not upside down, so that's good. Oh, and I didn't ink the edges on that one. Do over. Okay, before the glue sets, which it gave me some, and I know y'all were screaming, so I noticed before the glue set so I could take it off. So let's go ahead and do that, and then let's try this again. So there you go. Okay, there we go. All right, let's do that again. All right, matching up my scores. All right. Okay, there we go. That's more better. All right, so I did that on the inside. Now, on the outside of this, I'm going to show you that I did do separate pieces for the back side of the heart, okay? So I did do separate pieces for that. So that can be done later. You don't have to worry about it right now. So once you get this piece done, then we're just going to set this off to the side, okay? We don't want to put it on yet because we want to keep our box flat, okay? So then let's work on the rest of the sides. These are really easy to do. Put this out of the way for a second. So you'll need two pieces that are 2.5 by 4.5, two pieces that are 4.5 by 4.5, okay? Then we're going to, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to get this out of the way for a sec. All right, grab your scoreboard. Okay, and I do have my pattern paper picked out, so I'm going to go with the other side of the jukebox paper for these papers, and I won't put that on camera because that's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll show you. So you're going to take all of these pieces, and on the 4.5, we're going to score at 4, okay? So put them in 4.5, score at 4, all of these pieces. Now these are 4.5 by 4.5, doesn't matter which side. Scored at 4, scored at 4, okay? Then we're going to fold and burnish and miter, and so. And then we're going to cut the pieces here. Just miter those, and then we'll add them to the box, okay? I sure hope you guys like this tutorial. I'm sorry I'm trying to explain it. You know, it is a little bit complicated just because we're going to be building something, but it's really fun, and I think it's cool. I like it. I like it. Okay. All right, so we have our pieces ready to go. So then we're going to grab the bottom of our box, and remember this pattern paper is the one with the X. So let's go ahead, just so that we don't get confused here, and I should have done this before, but we'll go ahead and make sure we know that that is where the X is, okay? And then, so this is the bottom inside of our box. So eventually our wall is going to be up here. We're going to add our pages to the other sides, okay? So let's start with our smaller pieces, and they should line up exactly right there. So you're just going to simply put glue here, and then we're going to line this up right to that score line, okay? So we want it to be able to fold up and glue it down, okay? We're going to do that all the way around, matching our pieces. So the 4.5-inch piece here will line up right there, okay? And again, we're just going to do this. All right, all the way around. That's the easy, simple way to put these pages on. Okay, one more. Right there. There we go. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to make the corners for the boxes. So I did this because I wanted to make sure that the box was closed and that the pages like didn't fall in itself. And that was the other reason why I did this wall solid, because I wanted to kind of make this box as solid as absolutely possible. Okay, so you're going to grab a piece of cardstock. We're going to do this for all 3 corners. Now you notice the corners, they're not, you know, simple angles, okay? They're different. They're all different. What you're going to do is grab your piece of cardstock, and you're going to do this for all 3 of these things to make sure that they match perfectly, okay? You're going to take the straight edge, and you're going to put it right at that corner, okay? You're going to make sure that there's overlap on either side of these pages, and you're going to take your pencil, and you're going to draw your page, okay? Keep it straight. Oops, don't draw on your page, but if you do, it's pencil, it'll erase, it's okay, right? Like that. Okay, so this is what I did. So there's the point that matched there. I drew the V shape right here, and then I drew over the page just a little bit. You're going to take your ruler, we're going to make some lines here, so we're going to match corner to corner, which will be right about here to here. I'm going to make a pencil line. Okay, and then we're going to make a 1/2-inch line on either side of here. And that'll give us a guide for scoring, okay? Oops, and my tummy just growled. I hope you didn't hear that. All right, so we're going to do that, okay? So you should have something that looks like that, okay? So again, if you put this back into this piece, you'll have something like this, okay? So what we basically did was we made the top that's going to be here. Here's the corner, and then we made 2 1/2-inch marks that are going to be score marks, okay? So we're going to cut this whole thing out, okay? Okay, then cut down. And what you're going to have is you're going to have your V shape with your 1/2 inch scores there, okay? So then you grab your scoreboard, and we're going to put it in our scoreboard with the top at the top. Now, this is why I have this red line, so that I can match things up. And what I'm doing is, since that edge is straight, okay, or kind of straight, maybe I need to cut that just a wee bit. Trim it up a little bit so it's a little more better. There we go. All right, so I'm going to put that in my scoreboard, and I'm going to line up the point at my center mark, and that's why I have this red line down my scoreboard so I can match things up. So that's going to be the center of our piece, of our corner piece, okay? And then I'm going to put this in the scoreboard. Your pencil lines should line up at 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to score those. And they should be fairly straight lines. So just double check, just look and make sure that they look like they line up, and they do. Okay. And those are going to be how we attach it. So then we'll grab our scissors again. We're going to miter these just a little bit more. Now that we've got our angles and everything, and we've got our scores. Okay. Just going to line that up a little bit, or miter it just a little bit more. Okay. Then erase your pencil marks. This is quite a construction project, isn't it? I like it, though. I love this stuff. Should have maybe been an engineer or something. Something. Okay, so then our scores for our corners need to be folded, so then you're just going to have a piece like this, okay? This should line up in here perfectly, and then you're just basically going to glue those tabs to your pages, and then that's going to give you the fold up. Now, if we're lucky, this will match that angle as well, okay? So you can trace and cut and do it, and that's a little bit off, so we're going to do them all separately, okay? So we'll just go ahead and put some glue on one tab only, okay? And then I'm going to just stick this in here and line up those scores, line up that corner and the edge, and then glue that down. Okay. I'm going to open that page, and then I'm going to lay this down. Okay. And then I'm going to lay that down, and hopefully you might need to fold it in just a little bit. Okay, but there you go. Okay, there you go. All right, and that should fold up, okay? And there you go. And that's how you put the corners on. So let's do it a couple more times, just so that we are all on the same page. Let me grab another piece of cardstock here. Okay, so we're going to do this again. Again, another piece of cardstock. So I'm going to just line that up and make sure that I've got at least a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm just putting that corner right there at the edge. Make sure there's at least a 1/2 inch so that we have, you know, some space to make our tabs that will attach. We're just going to draw this out like so. Okay, take that out. We're going to make our pencil mark, and of course I didn't make the, there we go, corner to corner. Okay, to make that to make that edge right there, okay? And then we're going to create our tabs. So we're going to measure 1/2 inch out on the outside, okay, of that V, like so. And our scissors. Cut that out. Okay, so we have our piece, and don't panic that this isn't straight because it doesn't need to be right this second. Again, get your scoreboard. We're going to put that in our scoreboard. We're going to match the point of that V, okay? Go down that middle, okay? So there's that, and then we'll do the sides. So just make sure that they match up at 1/2 inch. And they do, so that's good. That's good, right? All right, then we're gonna go ahead and just kind of miter those just a wee bit more, like so. Okay, and then those will fold up. And then I'll go back, fold those up, and grab your piece. Now this is for the section in the middle, and it should hopefully line up pretty perfectly with the score lines. So then you just glue that down again. On this project, just always dry fit everything just to make sure everything's gonna work. So I'm just putting that in there, glue that down. Again, I'm gluing on the back side, the outside, because it's a lot easier to deal with, okay? And then I'm gonna just put glue on this piece. And that should line up. Okay, so we got 2 down. That will fold up just like that, okay? We'll check our outsides. That's what's going to be on the outside. So you'll have all the tabs on the outside, but we're going to cover all those up, okay? With our pattern paper and everything. So they're not going to be a big deal, okay? All right, last one. Let's do the last one. So again, another piece of paper. I just want to go through this project or process so that you guys really have a handle on how to do it, because I want you to be super successful. If you think you got it, go ahead and fast forward. It's okay. I'm all right with that. And then you don't have to listen to me yammer on, right? So I'm drawing that V, ruler, do the points. Okay, making that straight across. We're going to line that up, make our 1/2 inch outside for our tabs, and cut this bad boy out, and we should be good to go. I would suggest that you do these separately because, you know, you might be, like I said, 1 millimeter off with your, you know, depending on your cutter, whatever. And because these are angles, I just really, you know, suggest that you do them together, or not together, separately. Do them separately so that you get the angles properly. And even if they're like 1 millimeter off, nobody's gonna know, right? Okay, so again, straight edge at the top, find your point down here at the V, score down the middle, move it over 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Okay. Extra little miter. Okay. So we'll have the middle fold here. Oop, I'm gonna throw things. I'm really good at doing that too in tutorials. Probably should have a contest or something. How many things can she throw in one tutorial? All right, so we have our last piece. Okay, so this again, let's just dry fit. Make sure everything looks good. Make sure, yeah, that looks pretty darn good to me. So let's go ahead and put some glue on that tab. I'm gonna slide that in there like so. And then I'm gonna put that down right there. Looks like it should lay down pretty good, I think. Yes, I do. There we go. All right, just dry fit everything first. Make sure everything's gonna work properly. There we go. Wipe up any extra glue. That's always important, right? And then this should do like that, okay? And then you can kind of fold them and kind of burnish them and get them, or not fold them and burnish them, but kind of fold them and kind of, you know, work them into the proper shape, and then that should work out just perfect, okay? So then the last thing that I wanted to show you is how to make a pattern to cover the triangles that we just made. Let me see if I can find an extra piece of scrap paper here, and I can. So this is how I did that. So these two triangles should match. They should, let's see, let's measure and let's see if I did it right, or, you know, got them pretty similar. Okay, so 1 3/4 inches, and then these sides here should measure about, yeah, 1 3/4 inches. Okay, so these triangles should be pretty similar. So in order to cover these and these, to make a pattern, what I did was I stuck my piece of paper in here, okay, right up to the edge. Maybe I'll go this way. No, I'll go this way. So I put my pattern paper right over that page, and I matched my score lines, and then I just folded this over, okay, so, and made sure it was nice and tight. Take your pencil and draw that triangle, okay? So we have that shape, okay? So we just folded it over and we traced that shape. So let's cut that out like so. So I'm cutting right on that pencil line. This is how I made the pattern for your pattern paper that we will, or that you'll do later. Okay. So you have this pattern paper. Well, if you look at it, okay, so it's exactly the shape of the triangle, right? And we need to make sure that that is, you know, smaller, because we want that mat, right? So when I did this, what I did was I kind of eyeballed it, looked at where I wanted my mat, and then I took a measurement, and what I needed to do is cut off about 1/2 inch off the edge, okay? So grab your paper cutter, and I'm going to put my triangle in there. So this bottom edge is right here. I'm going to measure this so it's at 3.5 from point to that end. So I'm going to just moosh this over to 3 from 3.5 and cut that 1/2 inch off. And then what that will do is give you the pattern to cover your triangles, okay? And it should match up pretty darn perfect, okay? And then you can flip it over and use the pattern for the other side. And then hopefully, if all goes well, it should match the other side as well, okay? So that's the pattern. That's how you make the patterns to make those triangles. So you have these, and then we'll do the same thing for this other side, okay? So we'll put that in there, fold that over, and trace that shape, okay? Like so. Okay, so now we have that shape there. Because you'll need 2 patterns, because the inside, you know, bottom triangle obviously is bigger than the other ones. And that's how you kind of do this. So, okay. So again, I'm going to eyeball this just because I want to make sure I'm on the right page with this. All right. And I'm going to measure up. And if I take off about 1/2 inch, it should be perfect. So I'm going to put this in here. And this one measures about 3 1/8. So 2, 3. Is that right? Yep, I think. No, it's actually more like 3 1/4. So let's go down to 2 3/4 and see what that looks like. Because you can always cut more off. You can't cut off, you know, if you make it too short, you can't put it back. But yeah, that'll work out perfect. Okay. So there is that. And then you'll have the pattern if you reverse it for the other side. Okay. So that's how you make the patterns for your pattern paper. And I'm not going to do that right this second. And that's okay. You can do that later because this will lay flat. Now, if you want to make this super easy, now is when you would put your pattern paper on your inside and then on the outside pieces. Okay, and I'm sorry, I hit the camera. I didn't mean to. So I do have some of my pattern papers ready to go right here. Okay, I haven't done my triangles yet, but I can totally go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to put the pattern paper on here. I'm going to use my patterns to do the triangles, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this part up. We're back, and I have put pattern paper on the inside of my box, okay, using my patterns to do the triangles. I put pattern paper on the outside panels here. I'm not going to cover the triangles because when you close the box, they're going to be covered up and hidden anyway, so we're not going to do that. And then we're going to work on the bottom here in just a second, okay? Then what I've done is I've taken my wall piece and I have added the pattern paper to the back. All right. And then I've made my cut apart that's going to go right here. That's going to be our pop-up piece. So this is one of the cut aparts, the 3x4, and I just backed it on some artisan cardstock. So it's 1/8 inch border around. So I cut it at 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. And I have that ready to go. All right. So we need to add our wall to our piece. So again, kind of dry fitting, what this is going to do is this is just going to kind of wrap around those pieces right there. So what you're going to do is I'm going to put glue on the 2 inner panels that are going to go in that little point of our heart, that top inner point. I'm going to set those down and I'm just going to fit that in here and then just carefully wrap those 2 around with the tabs on the outside. Okay, I'll show you this in a sec. You wipe up that excess glue. This is meant to stand straight up, so you want to go just right to the edge. Okay, so I have those 2 pieces glued to the outside right there. Okay, these pieces are not glued down yet. Okay, so once those are glued down, then these should wrap right around the piece. So I'm just going to carefully kind of bend those out. I'm going to put glue on these tabs. Okay, you can see that. And then I'm just going to wrap those around and they should match up perfectly with your piece. I'm just going to go in, wipe up any that's excess, look at the back, and those should be glued down. Okay, we're going to repeat with the other side. Okay, so I'm just going to bend that out ever so carefully. And you won't be able to bend it all the way out, but that's okay. You're going to get glue on most of that tab, and then we're going to cover that with a piece of cardstock anyway, so it'll be fine. All right, and then just wrap it around, and it should match our box perfectly. Okay, just like so. Okay, wipe up any excess glue, and I'm pressing down. Okay, and then this is what the bottom should look like. You should have glued tabs all the way around, okay, from adding all of our things. Okay, then what you're gonna do is we're gonna grab this and we're going to glue that right just to the center, and this is kind of an eyeball thing. So because of the nature of this, I'm gonna put glue on that little mechanism, and then I'm just gonna eyeball this and set it down right in the center where I think it looks good. So, and again, this piece will matter, depending on what piece you pick, on what size it is, okay? So here again, I'm using my 3x4 cut apart. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Then you can kind of go on the inside here and then grab that mechanism and press it down on the back of your thing, on the back of your, pop-up mechanism, and then voila, you have that piece. Okay, so cute when this opens up and it explodes, and then you have that on there as well. So I love how that looks. Okay, and there you have it. Okay, and it'll just kind of give a 3D kind of thing with it. So I really like how that looks. Okay, so again, I just eyeballed that. Okay, now the bottom of the box, we got to do that. So we need that, and we need a piece of paper. And I think I'm going to pick this black check for the bottom of the box. Okay, I think it's really pretty. All right, so we need to cover this piece of paper, or have a mat for that piece of paper. Okay, now remember the X is here, the X is here. When I glue this down to the bottom of the box, I want to make sure the X is facing the same direction as the X here, so I'm going to glue it like this. Okay, so the X will be down. All right, because that's how we cut our heart out, and it should match. So no matter if you get something off just a little bit, it should match just perfectly. Okay, so we want to make sure that, remember how we used our pattern paper? Here's the X. We put it down on our pattern paper here so that we match the X's. We're going to have to make sure, because we're going to cover the side without the X, that we turn this piece over so that when we lay that pattern paper down, it should match up our piece perfectly. Okay, so I'm going to take my paper here, and I'm just going to line that up and draw around. And I did use a fairly, like 100-pound cardstock for these patterns, so that if I want to do this again, I totally can do it again. Okay, then I'm just going to cut this out. Okay. See my pencil lines? All right, so I'm cutting. All right, so we have that. Let's get rid of this. And let's grab our heart, and we should be able to lay that down, and it should match up pretty darn perfectly, which it almost does. So there you go. Hey, as perfect as we're going to get it, because, nobody's perfect, right? And then I'm just going to ink my edges. I'm going to glue my mat down. And then I'm going to put that down. All right, now you have to do this part last because this does cover up all of those tabs, and it does give, you know, some stability to the bottom of the box, okay? So, unfortunately, because my camera view, I can't show you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this on my table so that the wall is off the side of my table when I glue it down, so I have mostly a flat surface to glue that down on, okay? So I'm going to just set that down on the edge of my table. Let me see, I can maybe turn it so you can see right there. You see how I've got it kind of over the edge of the table? And I'll bring that back up. Sorry about that if I made you dizzy. And then I'm going to glue that down. Okay, so I'm putting glue, and again, the X's are going to match direction-wise. All right, you see. And then that should actually cover all of those tabs. It should go edge to edge. This cardstock piece will cover everything, okay? And then I'm just gonna kind of do the best I can with the edges here, okay? And then just glue that down. So then we have the bottom of our box, okay? And then what you can do is go down from the inside and press down on all of those edges and make sure that everything is stuck, okay? And there's the bottom, okay? So when you fold all this up, then now you have this pretty heart-shaped box. All right, so there's the box. The box is done. Okay, let's talk album and accordion booklets. Super simple, super easy. So for our mini album, you will need 6 pieces of paper that are 5 by 3.5. Now, you can use more or less as you want because they're just stacked pages, so it's super simple to make this as big or as little as you want. And then you'll need one back page, which is the base page, that's 4.5 by 3.5. And you're just going to take all of these pages. So the 4.5 by 3.5, don't score that one. Let me put this off to the side for just a sec. And the rest of them, the 5 by 3.5, put them in your scoreboard, score at 4.5. And again, I'm trying to keep the pages uniform. So take all of them, the 5-inch at the top, score at 4.5, okay? Once you get all of those done, there's 6 of those, then you're going to, and I probably should have done this off camera so you don't have to watch, but we're going to miter and fold and burnish all of these pieces, okay? And then we'll stack them together. And then I'm not going to put the pattern paper on because that's fairly self-explanatory. The pages will end up being 4.5 by 3.5. So I'm going to cut my pattern papers at 4.25 by 3.25, and you can use, you know, enough to cover every single page, or you can do like I did in my love letters book, and you can just cover the ones that will cover the connecting tabs, okay? So, and leave the other ones blank. You can add pockets, you can do whatever you want. So, I'll leave that part up to you to do. All right, but again, the pages will be at 4.5 by 3.5, so you have a nice place to put your pictures. All right, so once all of those are done, then what you can do to help keep things nice and square is, again, get your scoreboard, put your base piece, which is 4.5 by 3.5 down, and then just put glue on the tab. Okay, and then line that up and stick that down, okay? And that should hopefully get everything nice and square for you, okay? And then you're just literally going to stack all of them on top of each other, okay? go through and make sure you don't put, you know, get glue all over everything, which is, you know, sad when you glue your pages together, right? All right, so you can do that, and that will help keep everything nice and square. Okay. Okay, and then you can see, so here's where the tab attaches. So this is the page that I put my pattern paper on, and then I left this one blank. But again, you can do, you know, whatever, you know, you want to do. It's your book. Okay, so then we're just going to add those pages. And I like using my scoreboard to help square things up, which is really nice. And then when I did score these pages, you notice that I did it again on this side instead of this side, because I wanted to make sure that the pages were as uniform as possible, because the tabs don't matter. They're gonna, you know, be curved up anyway. So if they're off just a little bit, that's quite all right. Okay. So just keep going. And again, you can do as many or as little as you want. Okay. So I'm just lining that up. When I did, there we go. Okay, two more. Two more. That's all you got to do. It's really easy to make a stacked page album. Super fast. Can use up scraps, which was what I ended up doing. You know, I used up scraps from the project, and that's how I came up with like the size and the amount of pages and stuff. So it's totally customizable to what you want to do. And I'm just wiping up excess glue here between my pages. I want to make sure that I don't glue anything together I don't want to. Last page, top page. All right. And then the seam binding closure is again super simple. There we go. All right, so we have our book. Okay, let's check the inside here. Make sure everything's good. And it is. Okay, so here's your book. All right, so then if you look at my example book, so I did cover with pattern paper on the cover, on the front and the back, but before I did that, I went ahead and put seam binding, and I put it at about the 1 inch mark. So what we're gonna do is take our book, we're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna grab some score tape, and I'm gonna turn this to the side so I can see it better, and I'm gonna put some score tape just right down that 1 inch mark on the back of our book. Okay. And then I'm going to grab a piece of seam binding. This is from Country Craft Creations, and it's coral. And I think it matches really nicely with the paper and brings a nice little contrast here. I cut it at 24 inches, so I have plenty to wrap around and then plenty to tie my bow. So this will be my closure. All right. And then once you do that, then you can tie knots at the end of this, and then you can do your decorating here like I did here. Okay, so the bow adds a nice, it's closure, but it's also a nice decoration, and then you still have plenty of room to decorate. And again, I just did a piece of pattern paper. I popped it up with some foam tape, and then I added the flower and the charm to the front with a little bit of flat back pearls, and it turned out really pretty. So then that just sits, that will just sit inside your box, okay? Just like right like that. Then let's do the accordion pieces here real quick, and I'll show you one. They're both done the same, and you can cover them with pattern paper later because you don't really need to do that right this second. The accordion booklets are 3 1/4 by 10, or 3 1/2, excuse me, 3 1/2 by 10. You need 2 of those, and you're going to score these super simple at 3 1/2 and at 7. Okay, and then take these out of your scoreboard, and you're going to accordion style them. Okay, So when you do that, just make sure everything lines up and everything's nice and square. Okay. And then what you're going to do, whoops, I'm going to throw things on the floor. So I did it again. If anybody's counting, there's another one for you. And I'm going to put my book so that it opens. Let's see. How did I do that? This way. So I want this way to open up like that. And then I want it to open like that. Okay. So first thing you're going to need to do is, again, grab your seam binding and make sure your book is in the right orientation. We're going to put our score tape right in the middle. Get that out of the way. This book does end up making a big project, that's for sure. So the midpoint is about 1 3/4, and I'm just going to put my seam binding score tape right down the middle there. And then grab another piece. And this is also 24 inches. It gives you plenty of room to tie a bow. And then it also gives you plenty of room to tie a knot. So we're going to just put that right through the middle there. Like so. Okay. And then before I tie it, just make sure you've got it in the right direction that you want. Or before I glue it, I should say. And then I'm going to put some glue down on the back of this. And then one of these will go on each of our panels. Okay. And just make sure my seam binding's out of my way. And then I'm going to kind of eyeball that. Make sure it is in the middle. All right. Glue that down. Make sure I don't have anything kind of seeping up. And there you go. So that's how you do the accordion album pieces. So that's it. Now you can also add more panels to this if you want and make more, make it bigger, make more pages. You can fold them out the other direction, whatever you want, but you're just going to make 2 of those, and I will finish this one later, but then you can go back and you can put as much or as little pattern paper on these. Now I just did the fronts of the album because I wanted, you know, the rest are going to have pictures. So that's why I didn't cover most of them. So that is going to be finished later. Okay, so there's that, and then there's that. And then let's move on to the lid because we still have the lid to do. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly just because it's basically the same way to make the heart shape. It's just a little bit different size. And then we have the paper for the pattern here. So you're just going to take your papers and let me show you this. So again, this will be in the Google Docs. So the paper is 7.5 wide by 7 tall. And we're going to make all of our tick marks again, just like we did the first time. And then we're going to draw our lines, okay? And then just connect the dots and cut them, okay? So starting with our shape at the top, okay, so our heart shape, we're gonna go over to 1 3/8, make a tick, 2 3/4, make a tick at 3 3/4, that's the midpoint, that's just for reference, 4 3/4, and 6 1/8, okay? And I can show you this. So again, top of the square, we're gonna make tick marks at 1 3/8, 2 3/4, 3 3/4, 4 3/4, and then 6 1/8, okay? Then we're gonna go to the sides, all right? And let's start with the right side. We're gonna make a tick mark at 1 3/8 and 4 1/8, okay? And that's on the right side, okay? Then on the left side, we're gonna kind of reverse it. 2 7/8, 5 5/8. That's where you're gonna make your tick marks, all right? And then at the bottom, we're going to make a tick mark at 3 3/4, okay? So again, this will be in Google Docs, all right? We'll have some pictures. You can go and you can download this if you want to, all right? So then you're just gonna make your lines connecting your dots. You're gonna measure down again 3 3/4 inch and put that mark there in the center, and then that will create the top divot, okay? Grab your little clippies, and I've got 2 pieces here together so I can get these in the correct orientation. And I'm just going to cut these out. All right. I'm going to grab another clip here real quick. These clips work great. If you haven't watched my videos, this is your first time. First off, welcome. Thank you for watching. Secondly, these came from the dollar store, and I absolutely love them. I use them for all kinds of different things, that's for sure. All right, so I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to cut on my lines, and I'm, again, cutting through 2 pieces of cardstock because we're going to use 2 pieces to create the lid, just like we did with the box bottom, okay? One will be the piece that we're building onto, and the other one will cover up all the tabs, all right? All right, so there you have that. Just like so. Okay, so we have our hearts, and both pieces of cardstock are cut, and they both have X's. So we remember the orientation. We know which direction these hearts need to go. Okay, I'm going to erase any pencil marks that we have. Okay, and then let's get rid of this because it's in my way. So then here's a piece of pattern paper, and again, what we're going to do is we're going to make a pattern for our lid piece. Okay, so for the mat for our lid, okay, so we're just going to draw on this nice paper. Okay, we're going to make that pattern. Now if you want to make this again, make 2 patterns, one for the actual cardstock and one for your mat, and do this for the box bottom and for the box top. It will save you a lot of time when you want to make this again. Trust me on that. All right, so and I have patterns made for everything. Now I'm going to have double patterns, but I wanted to show you how to make them. So I'm just going around, I'm lining up my ruler at the 1/8 inch mark, and I'm going inside the line, and this is how we're going to mat with our pattern paper, okay? Like so. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to go all the way around. I'll do that side. And let's turn it this way. We'll get this side. And again, if you want to fast forward through this, because we already did this once, you don't have to do it again. But you do need to do one for the lid and one for the box. Okay? So there you go. Then X marks the front. And cut out on that pencil line. And you should have a pattern. And only other thing that would make this even cooler is if you used some sort of a see-through material to make a pattern, or cut out a second pattern out of see-through material so that you can place it on your pattern paper if you have a specific image you really want on the front, which would be kind of cool. And then that way you could see through the pattern and you can really place it where you wanted it, which maybe I might do. And I thought about that last night before I started this tutorial, but I didn't do it this morning. Okay, so we have our pattern for our pattern paper. The lid pattern paper. Matte pattern. Okay. So now that we have all that, remember I will have this in Google Docs for you so you can print that out. Now that we have that, we can do the lid, the rest of the lid. Okay, so we got our patterns made. So 2 at 7.5 by 7, which is your heart shapes. Then you need one piece that's 9 3/4 by 1 3/4, and 2 pieces that are 8 by 1 3/4. All right, so these are going to be the actual lid pieces, okay, the side pieces of our lid. So these pieces right here. And what I did was, instead of doing individual little things, because they're so little, I went ahead and did it so that we can kind of just take 3 pieces and put them together and wrap around. So on your first piece, you're going to take the 9 3/4 by 1 3/4. You're going to score at 2, 3 3/8, 4 5/8, 5 7/8, 7 1/4, 9 1/4. Okay, so again, the 9 3/4 at the top, score at 2, 3 3/8, 4 5/8, 5 7/8, 7 1/4, 9 1/4. Okay, that should give you a 1/2 inch tab here. You want that. Turn your piece with that 1/2 inch tab at the top, score at 1 1/4. Okay, make sure that the measurement for our lid piece is the same for all of our pieces. Now, all of our pieces, when you get done scoring them, should have a 1/2 inch tab here and a 1/2 inch tab on the bottom. You really need to have that. Okay, you take one of your 8 pieces, or 8-inch pieces. We're going to score these differently, so it's really important. The 8-inch piece, the first one, we're going to put in our scoreboard. We're going to score at 4 3/4 and 7 1/2. 4 3/4, 7 1/2. Turn it so that that 1/2 inch piece is at the top. Score at 1 1/4. Okay. The second piece, we're going to score different. We're going to put it in with the 8-inch at the top. We're going to score at 2 3/4 and 7 1/2. Okay. And then turn it with the 1/2 inch at the top. Score at 1 1/4. Okay. So what that's going to do, the bottom of the heart pieces are bigger. It's going to give us those 2 heart pieces together. It's going to give us our tabs to attach everything. Okay. So that's really important. If you score it this way, the same way, then you're not going to have your pieces line up, because the 2 bottom pieces won't jive. Okay, so the 2 bottom pieces I'm talking about are like right here. They're big, and you want your tabs to attach them in the same direction, and you want the pieces so that the big one and the little one, big one, little one. I hope that makes sense. It'll make sense in just a second, but it's really important that you do those opposite. Okay, so then we're going to fold and burnish everything. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and miter. And did I or did I not cut the pattern pieces for this? I think I did. Let me double check. Well, maybe I didn't. I thought I did, but I can do that later. That's okay. Okay, there we go. So we'll fold and burnish all of our lid pieces. It is easier if you cover these pieces before you attach them to your project. All right, so for each of the pieces, so you have your 1/2 inch tab, you want to miter that 1/2 inch tab like so. Okay, so you have that. And then what you're going to do is we're going to just fold and cut those other little 1/2 tabs out. And just like we did with the heart, these are going to just mold around our piece. Okay. Okay, and then the last piece here. And we're just going to do the same thing with the other 2 pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the pattern papers because we really should do that now. It's easier before you put them on the lid. So I'll get all that cut out, and then I'll put the pattern papers on, and then we'll assemble the lid, and then we'll be done. So I will be back in just a few minutes, and we'll finish this project. Okay, so I've added the pattern papers to my lid. I chose this pattern paper for the outside, so you can see that I did put the X marks here and the X mark here. This is going to be the inside, so this is the outside and this will be the inside. So I want to make sure my X's are going the proper direction. Okay, so I put my pattern papers on using the pattern that we created, and then I've also cut out the pattern papers for the lid pieces. So these are a lot easier to do now before you put them onto the box. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this together. So this is the inside of the lid. So here's the piece that's going to go to the inside. Okay, and I want to make sure that my tabs are all in the right direction. So I want my tabs now, because it's to the inside, I want all of these 1/2 inch tabs to be to the left. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this on. Let's grab the top piece. Now the top piece we're going to fold in the center, and that's going to be the center of our heart. Okay, up here, the top piece. So I'm going to put glue on those 2 center pieces, just like we did the box. Same process. All right. And make sure those are glued down. Okay, so we'll have those glued right there, and then we'll go ahead and just carefully fold those open. Put glue here, and then we're going to mold those around just like we did with the box. Okay, there we go. Catching on the tab underneath, so I'm just kind of making sure that they overlap down there. Wipe off your excess glue. Make sure that's pushed in nice. Okay. Let's check that just to make sure everything looks good. All right, so then we're going to grab our next piece, and we want the shorter piece here without the tab, because that tab is what's going to, oh, and that's where I messed it up. Okay, so you guys, this is where I messed it up, but that's a good thing because I can show you how to fix it because I have an extra strip of paper. So we're going to fix our boo-boo on camera. So you want to make sure, if you're doing this in, you know, if you want to make sure you're doing this nicely and you don't want to have to fix a boo-boo, either don't put pattern paper on the outside of these yet at all, or on the pieces that do not have a tab, don't put that on there because we're going to have to, you know, hook those together. So leave those open, okay? Whoopsies. I shouldn't have done that. And yeah, sorry about that. I'll put a disclaimer in the video. Like I said, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. All right. So I do have an extra piece of pattern paper, so we will cover that up and nobody will ever know we did that because you guys aren't going to tell, right? Right. So go ahead and do that. But this is how you'll fix a boo-boo. So I shall show you. All right, so I'm lining that up on that edge. There we go. And these will just wrap around the lid perfectly. And you'll only have to do 3 pieces instead of, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 pieces? Yeah. So 9, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, 10 pieces. So it's kind of awesome. Because the first one I did 10 pieces. And I was like, there's got to be a simpler way to do that. But, you know, it was a prototype. So there you go. Okay. Okay, now that all of those are glued down, so you can see the tabs on the outside, okay, then you just take these little tabs here and you put some glue on there and just fold those over, okay? It's probably easier if you look at it from the inside because you can see the scores, okay? And just glue those down. And that's why you really probably should wait on those pieces to put your pattern paper, okay? So the sides without the tab, hold those off and then do that last, okay? So then I'm just gonna go in here and match my score, make my heart point, glue that down. All right, last one. I'm going to go from the inside so you can see the score better and glue that down. All right, so I need to cut more pattern paper. So I'm going to cut, these will be 2.5 by an inch, 2.5 by an inch. I need a 4.5 by an inch. So, and then I need a 1 3/4 by an inch. So 4.5, 2.5, 1 3/4. 4.5, 2.5, 1 3/4. All right. So we just simply are going to cut more pattern paper. We're going to re-ink. And it's a good thing that I had extra strip of paper. Otherwise, I would have to redo all of them or figure something else out. All right. So, just re-inking those, which will also help hide my boo-boos. All right. I'm going to grab this, put my glue on. Not the end of the world, right? And then I'm just going to cover that up. And like I said, no one will ever know unless you guys tell. There we go. All right, like it never happened. Wait, that's a commercial for something. I know it is, right? Some fire thing, cleanup, something. Like it never happened. What boo-boo? I don't know. No boo-boo. No boo-boo here. All right. There you go. Just kind of maneuver that in place a little bit. There you go. Just trying to cover up that previous piece of paper. And you know what? Yeah, nobody's ever going to know that happened. All right, last piece. And we're almost done. We are almost done, guys. This is awesome. All right. I know it's a long video. All right. But it's a great project. I am super happy with it. Okay. So now that we've got our pattern paper on, okay, so the lid, the inside's done. We just have to put the outside on. And basically, we're going to do the same thing that we did for the box bottom, except this is going to be the outside, okay? So I'm going to take that off because I don't want to glue that. And again, the X's were in the proper orientation. So it's going to match up perfectly. It's going to cover all of those tabs. And it's going to reinforce the lid. And then all that's left to do is any decorating that we want to do. So, you have to be a little gentle because, you know, we don't want to squish it. But this should fit, like, completely right over the top of everything, okay? It should go to the edge. it should cover all of the tabs completely. So I'm just going to go around, and then what I'm going to do is go from the inside with my little spreader guy and just kind of push that down, and then we'll double check and make sure that glue hasn't seeped out all over everything. Okay, like so. And we'll go around the edges again. And you see how pretty that is? See how beautiful that is? That covered it up just perfect. Yeah, so there's your lid. So let's get this out of the way. Let's grab our project. Okay, so we have, here's the booklet that'll go inside. I'll decorate that later. Here's our first accordion. Our second accordion will go here. I'm going to decorate that later. That will all fold up nice and neat. And then our box lid will go over the top like that. And voila, we have a beautiful, I love rock and roll using Homer's Diner paper heart-shaped box, which is beautiful with the absolutely gorgeous Love Letters paper as well. So there you go. Ta-da! We did it! Yay! We did it! Okay, so that's the tutorial for the heart-shaped box. Now, let me go back to the Shamrock. This is the very last thing. Now, I'm not going to really do a tutorial on this, but I am going to talk you through it. So, while I was vacuuming yesterday, and I had this idea. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. Hearts, you know, can be converted into clovers. So, what I did was I literally took, like, the box pattern here, or the lid pattern, excuse me, and I made 3 lids. And then I glued them together, and that was all I did. So I made the lids exactly the same as I would for the boxes, and then I just glued them on the 3 sides. The tricky part is to make sure, because the angles are not like right angles at the bottom of the box, okay? So when you cut your pattern papers for these 2 here, you can see that the hearts aren't quite right angled, right? If you actually put it like square here and here, top and bottom, the paper is going to be all askew. So what I had to do was kind of really line up my boxes after I made the actual boxes, and then lay them down with the pattern paper and make sure that the pattern paper was tweaked just so. So using your mats helped do that, you know, your mat patterns, but that's how I did it. So I literally just did 3 boxes. So once, or 3 lids, that's what I did, the box lids. So put them together. This one obviously is square, and I love it. Look at that. I just love it. So I was able to get that saying on there, may the road always rise to meet you, may the wind always be at your back, may the sun shine warm upon your face, may the rain fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. And I just loved that, and I wanted that in there. And then I had these beautiful couple here, and this song, and it's just gorgeous. So that's what I did. I just glued them here and here, and with all the pattern paper, and there you go. This was just a stem that I just kind of eyeballed and cut out and then matted with the pattern paper. And then on the back, I'll just show you what the back looks like. So I did do the second pieces for each of the lids so that it covered up all of the tabs, so it looks nice and neat. And then I attached the stem here underneath those. And then I just added a little piece of ribbon here with a punch out just to make a hanger for it. And on the front here, I added a little bow, glued that on there, and voila, I have a really cute clover St. Patrick's Day decor piece using 3 lids. And I just thought it was fun. So I don't know if I'm going to add more to it or not. I kept thinking maybe I would. I'm not sure what to add to this because I just think it's gorgeous as is. So I might just leave it. I just think it's just elegant and beautiful. And this paper collection is gorgeous. Again, this is Ireland Forever by Country Craft Creations. So there is my project for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got inspired and decide to make one of these. I think they're fun. And I love it. So we've got, let me see if you guys can get this in the camera. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit here. Here we go. So we have love letters, we have Homer's Diner on my I Love Rock and Roll box. I mean, seriously, cute, huh? I thought it was clever. And then, and then we have our Shamrock that I made with the lids. So that's my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon with more. Before the video's done, I wanted to come back and show you what I did to decorate this, and I just absolutely adore how this turned out. So this is my Homer's Diner I Love Rock and Roll heart-shaped box that we did during the tutorial, and I just really am happy with how it turned out. It's really super pretty. What I did on the front here were I put some of these gems. I got these a long time ago from Country Craft Creations. I ordered them separately and I never did use them, but the turquoise, the blue in here kind of matched this really well. So I decided to put a little bit of bling around the top here and in the little stars. I used some of the coral that I had left over and did one of those bows. And then these flowers here were from a previous design team package that I had some flowers left over, so they were from Prima, and again, these were a while ago. These are leftovers from previous packages that I hadn't used, so you know, I'm trying to use some things up. So when you take the lid off, I left the inside just like this. I was going to put something else in there, and then I decided, nope, I like it too much the way it is. So I just left it. I might maybe add some bling around the clock. I don't know. But right now, I am very, very happy with how that turned out. So that's my lid. And then when you open the box up, so let's go back to our wall here. So I added a little bit more bling. So some of those gems that I had left over, I added to the little pop-up mechanism element here. And then I had some of the flowers. Now these flowers with the little dewdrops on, I had from my stash. So those did not come in a previous design team package. And I have my album here, and on the album, we'll go through this real quick. So I took one of my circle punches and punched out one of the records and backed it on some cardstock so it kind of lifted it a little bit. I fussy cut out one of the diner guest checks and added that. And then this is a little flower from my stash. Here's the closure with the ribbon. Let's undo that real quick and I'll show you what that looks like. So I think that cover turned out really pretty. I did use a little piece of gold mirror paper behind there, so that kind of gave it a little bit of something. And then when you open up the album, pardon me, I just put pattern paper over this page to cover those tabs, and then some of the die cuts from the collection I put on the pages, and I only glued them on a couple sides so that you could slip a picture underneath them. So I'll go under this, or go through this real quick. I love that one, no dancing on the tables. I think that's hilarious. Frozen snow cones there. So cute little album, decorated very simply, but it turned out really, really nice. So that will tie and go into the middle. And then the accordion pieces, I just simply covered the front pages. I didn't cover the insides at all, but they open up. Both of them are the same. I put dancers on them, and then they open like this for a photo mat, and then they open like that for a photo mat. So really cute. That, you know, it just turned out adorable. So I wanted to share with you how this album turned out. There's the lid, and then again, here is my Valentine love letter album and how that turned out. So it's just super fun. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with some more tutorials. Have a great day. Bye-bye.